Everyone in Kampala thought Zola Njeri and Darius Kamau had the kind of marriage people only dreamed about. They lived in a beautiful home, had a comfortable life, and always looked happy whenever they walked into a room together. People would look at them and say, "They are the perfect couple." And for many years, Zola believed that too. She had built her life around Darius. She supported him when he had nothing, stood beside him during difficult times, and celebrated every small victory like it was her own. She believed marriage was about two people growing together and facing everything as a team. But slowly something started changing. Darius was no longer the same man she married. The late-night conversations became shorter. The smiles became rare. The man who once couldn't wait to come home started finding reasons to stay away. At first, Zola tried to convince herself that it was just stress. Maybe work was difficult. Maybe he was tired. But deep inside she felt something was wrong. She noticed the little things. The way he avoided her questions. The way he looked distracted even when they were sitting together. The way their home, once filled with love and laughter, started feeling strangely quiet. Zola didn't know it yet, but the biggest heartbreak of her life was already entering her marriage. And the man she trusted the most was slowly becoming a stranger. Zola didn't know it yet, but someone new had already stepped into Darius's life. Her name was Amara Bello. Amara was young, confident, and the kind of person who easily caught attention wherever she went. She knew how to make people feel important. She listened carefully, laughed at every joke, and always made Darius feel like he was the most interesting person in the room. At first, Darius told himself it was nothing, just a friendship, someone who understood his struggles, someone who listened. But slowly, those small conversations started becoming something more. Darius began sharing things with Amara that he no longer shared with Zola. He talked about his dreams, his frustrations, and the things he felt were missing in his life. And the dangerous part was, Amara made him believe she understood him better than anyone else. She would say things like, "You deserve someone who truly appreciates you." And those words stayed in his mind. Instead of remembering how Zola had stood beside him for years, Darius started focusing on small things he thought were wrong. He started comparing. He compared Amara's excitement with Zola's quiet nature. He compared Amara's compliments with the comfortable silence he had built with his wife. He forgot that Zola's silence came from years of love, patience, and sacrifice. He forgot the nights she stayed awake worrying about their future. He forgot the times she believed in him when nobody else did. To Darius, Amara felt like a fresh beginning. A new chapter, a life without problems. But he didn't realize that he was chasing a feeling and ignoring the person who had been there through everything. Meanwhile, Zola could feel the distance growing between them. She noticed Darius smiling at his phone more often. She noticed how he became protective of his privacy. She noticed how his attention was slowly leaving their home. One evening, she looked at him and gently asked, "Darius, is everything okay between us?" For a moment, he looked at her like he wanted to say something, but instead he just looked away and replied, "You're overthinking, Zola." Those words hurt more than he realized, because deep down Zola knew something had changed. The man who once promised to choose her every day was starting to choose someone else. For weeks, Zola tried to ignore the feeling in her heart. She kept telling herself that every marriage had difficult moments. She believed Darius was just stressed. She believed the man she loved would never hurt her. But one evening everything changed. Zola found something she was never prepared to see. Message. A conversation between Darius and Amara. At first, she couldn't believe what she was reading. Her hands started shaking as she looked through the words that confirmed her biggest fear. Darius was not just talking to Amara. He was in a relationship with her. The same man who promised to love Zola forever had been secretly building a connection with another woman. For a moment, Zola felt like the whole world had stopped. She remembered every sacrifice she made for him. The days she supported him when he was struggling. The nights she stayed awake worrying about their future. The moments when she chose him, even when life was difficult. And now she was standing there, realizing that while she was protecting their marriage, he was slowly walking away from it. When Darius came home, Zola didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just looked at him with tears in her eyes and asked, "How long has this been happening?" Darius stayed quiet for a moment. Zola waited for an apology. She waited for him to say he was sorry. She waited for him to say that he made a mistake. But the words that came out of his mouth broke her heart even more. "I found someone who makes me happy." Zola stared at him, hoping he would realize how painful those words were. "How can you say that after everything we built?" she asked softly. Darius looked away. Instead of remembering the woman who stood beside him for years, he acted like their entire marriage was something he had outgrown. Zola felt a pain she had never felt before. It wasn't just about losing her husband. It was about realizing that the person she trusted the most had already chosen someone else. That night, Zola sat alone in the quiet house. The same house that once held their laughter now felt empty. She cried not because she was weak, but because she was mourning the future she thought they would have. She had loved Darius with her whole heart, and now she had to accept the truth. The man she married was no longer the man standing in front of her. After the truth came out, Zola hoped Darius would finally understand what he was about to lose. She thought maybe seeing her pain would make him realize his mistake. Maybe he would remember their years together. Maybe he would choose their family over a temporary feeling. But Darius had already made his decision. A few days later, he sat down with Zola and spoke in a calm voice that felt colder than anything she had ever heard from him. "I think it's time for me to leave," he said. For a moment, Zola just stared at him. She felt like she was hearing the words, but her heart refused to accept them. "Leave," she whispered. "After everything we built." Darius took a deep breath. "I want a different life. I want to be with Amara." Those words felt like a final crack in everything Zola had believed about their marriage. He wasn't confused. He wasn't sorry. He had chosen. When their family and close friends heard the news, everyone was shocked. People couldn't understand how Darius could walk away from a woman like Zola. They knew their story. They knew how she supported him when things were hard. They knew how she stood beside him before the success, before the comfort, before the life everyone admired. Some people tried to talk sense into him. "Darius, are you really willing to throw away your marriage for this?" But he believed he was making the right choice. He thought he was chasing happiness. He thought Amara was the future he wanted. And Zola watched the man she loved walk away from the life they created together. That night, she packed away the memories they shared. Pictures. The little things that reminded her of happier days. Every item carried a story. Every corner of their home carried a memory. But she didn't beg him to stay. She didn't fight for someone who had already decided to leave. When Darius was ready to walk out the door, Zola looked at him one last time. Her eyes were full of pain, but her voice was calm. "You're choosing this. Remember that." Darius looked at her, but he didn't understand the meaning behind those words. He thought he was leaving behind a broken marriage. He didn't know he was walking away from the person who had helped build everything he had. And one day, he would realize that the choice he made was the beginning of losing everything. What Darius never knew was that while he was busy chasing a new life with Amara, Zola had been quietly building something of her own. For years, Zola had kept a secret. She was not just the supportive wife standing behind Darius. She was a woman with dreams, plans, and a vision. When Darius was focused on growing his career, Zola was quietly learning about business. She studied investments, understood the market, and started making smart decisions with the money they had saved together. She never did it to compete with him. She did it because she believed in their future. She wanted them to have security. She wanted their family to have something bigger than just a comfortable life. While Darius celebrated his achievements, he never noticed the late nights Zola spent researching new opportunities. He never saw the meetings she attended. He never knew about the property deals she carefully built. He didn't know that the woman he thought was only taking care of the home was also creating a powerful foundation behind the scenes. Zola invested in properties. She bought shares in growing companies. She built connections with people who respected her intelligence and determination. But she kept it private. Because every time Darius had a dream, she wanted him to feel supported. She wanted him to believe he was building their success. She never needed the attention. She never wanted praise. Her love made her put his happiness before her own. There were moments when Darius talked about his future goals, and Zola smiled because she already knew she was helping make those dreams possible. But after he chose Amara, something inside Zola changed. For the first time, she stopped building for someone else. She started building for herself. The woman who once used all her strength to support her husband was now ready to use that strength to create her own future. Darius walked away thinking he was leaving behind a simple life with a simple woman. He had no idea that the person he underestimated was the same person quietly holding everything together. And now that she was no longer standing behind him, the world was about to see who Zola Njeri truly was. At first, Darius believed he had made the best decision of his life. He moved forward with Amara and started enjoying the new life he thought he always wanted. Everything felt exciting in the beginning. New places, new conversations, a new person who always made him feel special. Amara loved the lifestyle Darius provided. She admired his confidence, his success, and the image of the powerful man everyone respected. And Darius enjoyed feeling like he had started over. He thought he had left his problems behind. He thought he had finally found happiness. But slowly reality started showing itself. Without Zola beside him, things began changing. Small problems in his business became bigger problems. The decisions that once felt easy became harder. Projects started failing. Money that once came easily started disappearing. Darius couldn't understand what was happening. He had always believed success came only from his own hard work. He never realized how much Zola's quiet support had helped him. She was the person who looked at every detail, the person who thought about the future, the person who noticed risks before they became disasters. Now she was gone, and nobody was there to protect him from his own mistakes. People who once surrounded Darius started stepping away. Business partners became distant. Friends who admired his success stopped calling. The same people who praised him when everything was going well suddenly had no time for him. Darius started feeling the difference. The life that looked perfect from the outside was slowly falling apart. Meanwhile, Amara noticed the changes too. The expensive dinners became less frequent. The confidence in Darius's voice disappeared. The man who once seemed unstoppable was now stressed and worried. One night, Darius sat quietly, looking at his financial reports. For the first time he remembered Zola. He remembered how she always had solutions. How she stayed calm when things went wrong. How she believed in him even when he doubted himself. But pride stopped him from admitting the truth. He didn't want to accept that the woman he left behind was the person who had helped him stand so tall. Darius thought he was leaving a wife who depended on him. He didn't know he was leaving the person who had been his biggest strength. And as his world started breaking apart, Zola's world was just beginning to rise. Months passed after Darius left. While he was trying to fix the problems in his own life, Zola was quietly building a new future. She didn't spend her days crying over what she lost. She spent them creating something bigger. The woman everyone thought was broken was actually becoming stronger than ever. Then one morning everything changed. The news started spreading everywhere. People were talking about a major business deal that shocked everyone. Zola Njeri has acquired one of the fastest growing companies in the region. The same woman who was once known only as Darius Kamau's wife was now being recognized for her own success. People who never noticed her before were suddenly talking about her intelligence, her vision, and her incredible business skills. Everyone was surprised. Friends who knew Zola were proud. People who underestimated her couldn't believe what they were seeing. But the person who was most shocked was Darius. He saw the news and froze. He read her name again and again, hoping he had misunderstood. The woman he left behind, the woman he thought would struggle without him, was now standing higher than ever before. For the first time, Darius started seeing the truth. Zola was never just the quiet wife who supported him. She was the person who helped create the foundation of his success. He remembered all those times when she gave him advice. The times she encouraged him when he felt unsure. The times she handled problems without asking for credit. Suddenly everything made sense. The confidence he had, the opportunities he received, the stability he enjoyed. So much of it came from the woman he walked away from. Darius sat there thinking about how easily he had replaced her in his mind. He believed Amara understood him better. He believed Zola was holding him back. But now he realized he had been wrong. Zola wasn't holding him back. She was the reason he was able to move forward. The most painful part was knowing that she never needed to prove anything to him. She had quietly built her own empire while loving someone who didn't see her value. And now the world was finally seeing what Darius failed to see. Zola Njeri was not the woman he left behind. She was the woman he lost. When Zola's success became the talk of the city, Amara started seeing things differently. In the beginning, she loved the life Darius gave her. She loved the attention. She loved the expensive dinners, the confidence, and the image of being with a successful man. Darius made her feel like she had chosen a better future. But that future was slowly changing. The lifestyle she admired started disappearing. The luxury they once enjoyed became harder to maintain. The business problems were growing, and Darius was no longer the same confident man she first met. He was stressed. He was worried. He spent more time looking at numbers and trying to fix problems instead of enjoying life. Amara noticed the change. The man who once made her feel special now spent most of his time frustrated. The conversations that were once exciting became full of complaints and pressure. One day, Amara looked at Darius and realized something she never wanted to admit. The person she fell for was not just Darius. She had fallen for the success around him. The lifestyle, the comfort, the image. But now that those things were disappearing, the connection didn't feel the same anymore. She started becoming distant. She stopped asking about his day. She stopped showing the same excitement she once had. Darius felt it. He could see the woman who once chased him was slowly pulling away. And it hurt because now he understood a painful truth. He had left a woman who loved him when he had nothing to be with someone who loved what he had. Meanwhile, Zola was building a life filled with purpose and peace. She was surrounded by people who respected her for who she truly was. Not because of what she could provide. Not because of her husband's name, but because of her own strength. Darius, on the other hand, found himself sitting alone in the same life he thought he wanted. The house felt quiet. The success he depended on was gone. The person he chose was no longer standing beside him, and the person he left behind was now happier without him. For the first time, Darius understood the price of his choice. He didn't just lose a marriage. He lost the one person who stayed when life was difficult, the one person who believed in him before the world ever noticed him. After everything changed, Darius finally understood what he had lost. The success he once depended on was gone. The woman he left for was no longer by his side, and the person he thought would always be there for him had moved on. For the first time, Darius stopped blaming everyone else. He realized his biggest mistake was not losing his business. It was losing Zola. One day, he gathered the courage to visit her. When Zola opened the door and saw him standing there, she felt a wave of emotions. A part of her remembered the man she once loved, but another part remembered the pain he caused. The nights she cried alone. The moment he chose another woman over their marriage. The feeling of being replaced. Darius looked different. He wasn't the confident man who walked away months ago. His eyes were full of regret. "Zola," he said softly, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to say this." He stayed quiet. She allowed him to speak. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." Those words were the words she once wished to hear. But now they didn't heal the pain. Because apologies could not erase the moments when she felt abandoned. Darius continued, "I was blind. I didn't see what I had. I thought I was choosing happiness. But I was walking away from the person who truly loved me." Zola listened carefully. She saw the regret in his eyes. But she also remembered something important. He didn't lose her because of one mistake. He lost her because he stopped valuing her. He stopped seeing her sacrifices. He stopped appreciating her love. After a long silence, Zola finally spoke. "Darius, do you know what hurt me the most?" He looked at her. "It wasn't that you left," she said. "It was that you thought you could replace me." Darius lowered his eyes. because deep down he knew she was right. Zola continued, "You lost me when you thought you had replaced me." Her voice was calm, but every word carried the pain she had survived. "I was the person who stood beside you before anyone knew your name. I believed in you when you were still trying to find yourself. But the moment someone new came along, you forgot everything we built." Darius had no answer, because there was nothing he could say. Zola had already healed from the heartbreak he caused. She no longer needed him to realize her worth. She already knew it. And that was the moment Darius understood the hardest truth. Sometimes you don't lose someone because they stop loving you. You lose them because you make them realize they deserve better. Months later, Zola's life looked completely different. The woman who once sat alone in a quiet house with a broken heart was now living a life she had created with her own hands. She had a beautiful home, a successful company, peaceful heart. Her days were no longer filled with sadness or questions about why someone left her. Instead, they were filled with purpose, happiness, and people who truly respected her. Zola had finally learned that her value was never decided by someone else choosing her. She had always been enough. She walked through her company with confidence, seeing the result of all the hard work she had done quietly for years. People admired her. They respected her. But the best part was not the success. It was the peace she felt inside. One evening, Darius saw her from a distance. He watched as Zola smiled while talking with her team. He saw the happiness in her eyes, the confidence in her steps. The woman standing in front of him was the same woman he once had, but now she was stronger, happier, and completely independent. And in that moment, Darius finally understood. He didn't leave a wife. He lost the person who believed in him before anyone else did. He lost the person who supported him before the world knew his name. He lost the person who stayed during the difficult days and celebrated every small victory with him. Darius thought he was choosing a better life. He thought he was leaving behind something ordinary to find something special. But the truth was, he walked away from something rare. He walked away from someone who loved him when he had nothing to offer. Zola never needed revenge. Her happiness was enough. Her success was enough. Her peace was the ending she deserved. And as Darius stood there watching the life she built without him, he finally understood the cost of his choice. My husband chose another woman thinking he was gaining a better life, but in the end, he lost everything he never knew he had.